Hi everyone, it's Matt from The Pen Habit. Welcome back to another video. And today we're going back to the land of China for another pen review. This time it is the Duke D145. This is a pen that I borrowed from my father, who got as a gift from my grandmother, because as I have mentioned previously, I have infected my entire family with the fountain pen virus, as well as many of you, apparently. So anyway, in this pen is a Chinese-made pen for Duke. It says Germany 116 on the back. I don't know what that's all about, but according to what I found on eBay, this is a Duke D145. Just kind of going over the pen from the top, there is a Duke logo here on the top. Kind of a chiseled edge along that section. Got a nice solid clip here, a little bit of give to it, but still really solid, with the little Duke crown medallion right there. Black enamel on, or paint on the cap, and it says Duke, as I mentioned, Germany 116. The cap is very loose on the pen. I mean, it's not loose this way, but it just turns very easily. The barrel has this lovely kind of harlequined design in this kind of metallic-y, maroonish red color and black, which I actually find quite attractive. Silver fittings here and on a cap on the bottom. And you'll notice here, this actually allows the pen to be posted quite securely. So it clicks on as a posting, which, if you're the kind of person who likes to post your pen, is actually very nice. In terms of the nib, it's a steel nib, and this one, as is true with most, let me just verify that here. Yeah, as is true with most Chinese-made nibs, they don't mark a size on the nib, but it's got the Duke crown, lovely kind of like fleur-de-lis, Art Deco-y sort of design, and then it says Duke Germany, and standard plastic feed on the back. Nothing too special there. It is a cartridge converter pen, as is true of many of the pens from China. And this pen did come with a different converter, a very, very cheap converter that fell apart as I was trying to clean the pen from its previous use. So I just slipped in a standard international converter that I had lying around instead of that very cheap one that comes with. And that's just a little tip and trick for people who buy a lot of these Chinese-made pens. Do yourself a favor, go to Goulet Pen Company or someplace and buy yourself a handful of higher quality converters, because you'll find that some of these converters leak. The cheaper ones leak, they fall apart, they fall off the spindle and get ink all over the inside of the barrel. It is my opinion that it's better, if you're going to buy one of these $7, $8 pens, to spend a couple bucks and get a decent converter to go along with it. It's a metal-bodied pen, so it is a little on the heavier side, so it will give you a bit more heft. All in all, though, it's a nice pen. I actually like it quite a bit. In this, sub $10 range from China, the pen feels very solidly made, aside from the looseness of the spinning of the cap. Nice and heavy. And the nib writes pretty well. So let's go over the specs. We have capped, you're looking at 137 millimeters length this way. If you uncap it, it is only 119 millimeters, so it's still usable for me uncapped, which is good. As I mentioned, it can be posted, and it's a fairly long 158 millimeters when it's posted. I find it to be it's balanced, it'll stay balanced. I find it to be just a little back heavy. It's not too bad, but just a little back heavy and a little long, a little unwieldy when it's posted that way. In terms of the grip, I grip right about here. It's just shy of 11 millimeters, so it's a slightly wider grip. The barrel is 12.7 millimeters and the cap is 13.2. And for a metal-bodied pen, it is a little heavier, but it's not super heavy. So it's 24 grams without the cap and 38 grams, so another 14 grams added, with the cap posted, or with the pen capped, or with the cap posted. So all in all, it's a nice pen for less than $10, free shipping from China. I mean, like many of these Chinese pens, what you get is going to be inconsistent, but it's a nice pen and it writes surprisingly well. Now, this is the first Duke that I've ever used. I've used a lot of the other Chinese brands, so I have no real experience with the quality of Duke nibs compared to the quality of Hero nibs or Jinhao nibs or Wing Sung or whatever Wang Sung or whatever. You know, there's so many of these Chinese manufacturers, Kaigalu and the like, but I'm pretty impressed with this nib. It actually writes pretty well. So now, instead of me talking about it anymore, how about I actually do some writing? So the pen is a Duke D145, and it's a medium steel nib. And like I said, they don't mark it, but it writes like a medium. And this appears to be a standard number 6 size nib. So if you wanted to replace this nib with a Goulet nib or a Franklin Christoph or an Edison or a Monteverde or a Knox nib, I believe you could probably do that on this pen. The ink for today is Noodler's Bad Blue Kingfisher, which is I believe a permanent ink or a bulletproof ink. I don't pay attention because that's not an important feature for me. But nice kind of dark bluish, slightly turquoisey, blue blacky color. Really quite lovely. I like it quite a bit. And I use this ink a lot to address envelopes because I don't want to tape over the address or something. So I'm going to use a waterproof ink for that sort of thing. And the paper is a Rhodia dot pad. Okay, the quote for today. I'm going to slow down a little bit and see if I can improve my handwriting slightly. You know, it's interesting. I was emailing back and forth with Stephen Brown several months ago, and he said that people have criticized him in the past for his handwriting, and it's like, you can't be an expert, your handwriting's sloppy. I'm like, what does that have to do with being a fountain pen expert? Nothing. You know, my handwriting has improved quite a bit since I became a fountain pen fan, but it's still not fantastic, and there's a lot of work that could be done. But to me, that's not the point of using a fountain pen. It's not to improve your handwriting. It's to just have an instrument that helps you enjoy the writing experience. And if you enjoy the writing experience by working on handwriting and have just this, and I've seen some just stunningly beautiful handwriting from folks, fantastic. If you just like the feel of the thing in your hand and your writing still looks like garbage, that's okay too. That's not what it's about. So yeah, every now and again, I like to slow down and try to improve my handwriting a little bit. You know, practice letter R's. I have a hard time with cursive letter R's. That's probably one of my more difficult letters to deal with. So anyway, going back to the pen, the Duke 145. This is not a particularly wet pen. Now, if this were my pen, I would probably increase the wetness a little bit. Now, I have a slightly different way of increasing wetness, which I'll talk about in a later video, or in another video. I may have already shown it. I don't know. I'm recording these out of order. So then what I've seen from other people, particularly the trick of pressing down the tip of the nib, I don't like doing that. I've ruined a couple nibs that way, or come close to ruining a couple nibs that way. So I use a slightly different technique, but I'll talk about that in that video. But this pen runs a little dry. That being said, it's very smooth. Probably one of the smoothest cheap Chinese pen nibs I've ever used. You can see there's a couple spots like right here and right here where it's not skipping per se. If I were to slow it down and make sure that the nib stayed on the paper a little bit more completely, it wouldn't happen. But because it runs dry, if you're not, it will occasionally skip just a little bit. And I like a wetter pen anyway. However, in terms of the smoothness, man, to get this behavior out of such a dry nib, to get this level of smoothness out of such a dry nib is pretty unusual. Usually the drier the nib, the scratchier they get. So I suspect once the wetness on this pen is increased, which I will do later on, this will become just an exceptionally smooth nib. You can see, especially on the cross strokes, that's where I tend to have issues with skipping. So, that just kind of is what it is. There's not a lot of give in this nib. It's a steel nib. We've talked about this before. So not a lot of give there, and that's okay. Upside down writing, very scratchy and even drier. So there you go. That's really about it for this pen. It's a lovely pen. It's pretty comfortable to hold. I do occasionally find my grip right on this section here between the section and the barrel. It's a little more step downy than I generally like, but it's not the end of the world. It wouldn't bother me on long writing sessions. So this is one of the nicer sub $10 Chinese pens that I have received from eBay. My dad loves it. He really likes the pen a lot, uses it all the time. I'm perhaps just a little less enamored by it, but then again, my experience is a little bit more colored by some of the higher end pens. So for a lower end pen, this is one of the nicer ones I've come across, and I like it quite a bit. Were it in my collection and did this belong to me, I would probably use it. Not frequently, but occasionally. Will I go out and buy it? Maybe. I might, actually, because I like the design quite a bit. It's a nice showpiece of a pen. So that is my review of the Duke D145. If you have questions or comments, as always, check out the link to Pen Habit down below, and you can head over there to join the conversation, or you can start up the conversation on Google+, on Facebook, on Twitter, all those places. So thank you, as always, for watching, and we will see you here next time on the Pen Habit. Bye. Well, what you call tromping around in them gap-toothed, banjo-picking, no-eyelid, hillbilly yards stealing all they junk?